218 Afterthoughts. Man, that was lispy as and one of the worst parts about having a lisp and maybe drinking a beer or a cocktail. Oops, you can't see that. Whoops. While doing a show, it can affect how you talk. And I don't really care, but I'm sitting here doing this pod. Oh, I got a text message. Oh, no. I'm sitting here getting ready for the pod, listening to music, doing the stuff that I normally do. And I'm like, dog, Lil Jon deserves way more respect than what he gets. And don't get me wrong, people who know and love music have the utmost respect for Lil Jon. But I don't think people really take into consideration how dope of an artist he is and was. He's more of a DJ now, but think about just the production itself. Production's great. But then you think about the basis, the origin of hip hop. Before we had songs, we just got the DJ on the turntables, and then we got the MC. You know what I'm saying, rocking the crowd. And when you think about his songs, he was just rocking the crowd. But then if you listen to the albums in their entirety, it follows a theme, and he makes different type of music. You got the music for the ladies, you got the crunk stuff, and maybe that style just played out. But when you just think about, I mean, this guy got party anthems for days. He's got anthems for days. And no, he wasn't a great rapper, but he brought out the best in some of our greatest rappers. I love to hear Jada Kiss on a Lil Jon beat. I like to hear Bun B on a Lil Jon beat. You know what I'm saying? Like Fat Joe on a Lil Jon beat, Too Short on a Lil Jon beat, Ursula John and Luda. All of that stuff that he did, the hits, just the deep cuts, the regional music, the international music. Turn down for what? And I'm not gonna lie to you, one of the best DJ clubs I've been to, Lil Jon DJ, and it was an international crowd. The American crowd, it was the military town country, but even still, bro, like that crowd was diverse. You got people from the United States, but from different pockets, and he was able to cater to the crowd and keep the vibes going. So just shout out to Lil Jon and MC. What else I want to talk about? Oh yeah, I was listening to 520, and I'm kind of back to listening to different pods and pulling topics from there and pulling topics from my real life, and not necessarily pulling topics from what trends or what people want to hear, because I'm not necessarily speaking to what people want to hear. I want people to want to hear me. So I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. And they were having a conversation about couples therapy. I was just shaking. That was the anxiety kicking in. Sorry, guys, I get anxious sometimes. But no. So they were having a conversation about couples therapy, and they were giving their different takes on it. And boy, let me tell you what. I think couples therapy has a lot of value. But I also think couples therapy is woo wee. It can be the devil and an extreme waste of money. Because I'm not speaking for myself, I'm just speaking hypothetically. Right? But imagine if you go to couples therapy and that's the place that where you can now freely talk about the things that's going on in your house. You can get your stuff off. You can say what you want. You can create, because you need that free space, that safe space to talk. And now you shouldn't need therapy because you should already have that safe space and those opportunities built into your relationship as they go. But hey, if you get to the point to where maybe you need a mediator to get y'all there, and y'all know that y'all need a mediator, it's great. But when you're there for reasons, I imagine it could be a huge waste of money. I just imagine what it will be like when you know it's not a safe space, or therapy can be a safe space, but the second that therapy's over, you've got to get in that car, you've got to log off of that zone, and then you've got to go confront what you did in therapy, but you didn't have a hall monitor over there to make sure you were good. And what I imagine, again, I don't know. I imagine that you could go to therapy and tell your therapist whatever it is that you think they want to hear, and especially in a couple setting, in order to keep the peace. And you may have great conversation. You could have great conversation, get some good breakthroughs, and make incremental change. But is there really a point in going to couples therapy if you're not going to go there and be totally honest? Hell, is there a point of going to therapy if you're not going to go there and be totally honest? I get that we all lie. Everyone lies, okay? And we're hypocrites too, neither here nor there. But why go through the money, the time spent in therapy if you're not going to actually use it for what it's for? If you're not going to be honest and get to some healing. So I take their conversation on their thoughts about that to say, hey, if you're in a couple and y'all have problems communicating, before you go to therapy, you should probably look at why you have trouble communicating. And I'm not saying y'all do that together. Maybe you do it independently. And then maybe that's something that you bring up in therapy because the best therapist wants to get rid of the clients. Now I know that goes against the whole capitalist way of thinking, and y'all need these regular checkpoints to make sure you're good. But the best therapist, the best doctor, is going to give you the tools so that you don't have to see them too often. If you're a good therapist, man, you got clients, but you got a lot of clients that you don't see because you're giving them the tools. You're not just trying to help them build the house slowly but surely. Like the Israelites in the wilderness 40 years. Yeah, yeah, that right there. But just something to think about. But the title of this pod, the theme of this pod is why does this exist? And that's a question I think that we should ask ourselves on a regular basis. I'm sitting here looking at a TV while I talk. I got a computer right here while I talk. Why does this exist? This TV exists for one, for people to make money who provide the rare, not the rare, the raw materials for it. But bigger picture is just providing a means for us to see movies, entertainment. It's entertainment. Provide a means for us to see stuff that we can't see in person. And then when you get the smart TVs, it allows you to do other things like play music. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, because of the game consoles. Oh, it has a purpose that justifies the purchase. Now, think about other stuff in your life. Think about the TV shows that you watch. Think about the clothes that you wear. Think about the podcast you listen to. Think about the newspaper you read, the book that you read, the beer that you drink, the food that you eat, the water that you drink, whatever the case may be. Maybe you ask yourself, why does this exist? Why does this company exist? Why is there a business behind this? And if you find yourself saying this only exists to amplify something that's not necessary, maybe you should consider removing it from your life. So, as you all know, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I mean, this is going to be put on a podcast. Afterthoughts. AC's Afterthoughts is a podcast. But I'm going to keep saying this. It's not the podcast in the sense of a mainstream podcast, right? I have a podcast. Why does it exist? It exists because I want to share thoughts with people. I want to share messages with people. I want to try to educate people. I want to try to entertain people. I want to take things. I want to start conversations, and maybe some of the conversations started from this platform uh, take take shape in reality. Because I don't just come here and talk about things. I also go and do some of the things that I talk about. Right. I don't talk for the sake of talking. I don't talk to make money off of talking. Now, because I spend time talking, I would love to make money off of it because it's about the time spent, but it's not because I just want to get paid for talking. No, I want to talk to a large amount of people. And when you talk to a large amount of people, you usually get paid for it. There's a difference. But why does this exist? And what really got this ball rolling was, I investigate any and everything these days. I'm a skeptic. But I saw that Stephen A. Smith was on Out the Mud, the podcast. Zebo and Tony Allen. And no disrespect to Zebo and Tony Allen. What the hell I want to listen to Zebo and Tony Allen talk about? I'm not saying there's not a market for it, because there definitely is. But why do I care about what they have to say? And then why does Stephen A want to go sit and talk to them? Well, I know Stephen A wants to grow audience. So he goes and sits with other places, makes himself look cool, gets a stamp, so maybe he can pull some audience from that. Why? Because he gets paid to talk. And the more people that watch him, the more money he gets paid. Makes sense. But because Stephen A gets paid to talk, and he talks based on what pays him versus talking in a way that gets him paid, I don't really consume anything that Stephen A. Smith puts out. What value does that? It just makes me smarter on how Stephen A. Smith thinks. How does that make me more money? How does that help me accomplish my goals? How does that make me galvanize my community, my family? It doesn't. So I don't listen to it. And I go, well, why does this podcast exist? And then I think about their network that they're on. And that's the same podcast network with Theo Pinson in them. And I go, why does this exist? And then I investigate the business model of the streaming companies and the podcast companies, right? And the way that they make their money is by leveraging the audience of the multiple podcasts. So you go, I bet these guys maybe thought about doing a podcast, but they only did it because the bag existed. So when somebody does something only because the bag exists, not because they can get a bag from doing something that they want to do, but no, we're saying we're doing this because the bag exists. Well, where's the bag coming from? And then you go, oh, bro, a lot of these shows are sponsored by the same people, and then you realize it's not really about the show itself. It's about the numbers that the show can do. So then whoever owns the show, who's sponsoring the show, who owns the network, can then get money. And the people who are doing it only for money. And when you're doing things only for money, like, why are we doing this? Why does this exist? Do you not have enough confidence in yourself that you can't make money doing something that you enjoy doing? I mean, maybe we don't, you know? And I'm somebody who's been scared to take a leap of faith on certain things. I'm not going to sit here and act like, but I've never done something just for the bag. I've thought about doing things for just the bag. I've applied for jobs for just the bag. Didn't get them. And so I just in every aspect of life, why does this exist? What is the goal of this product? What is the goal of this service? What is this person? Why does this person exist in my life? What do they offer? What do I offer them? What do I receive? What do they receive from me? Is this relationship balanced? Is this relationship giving? Is it fulfilling? Am I happy with what I'm receiving from this or not? It could be friends, family, relationship, anything. Why does this exist? And as you ask yourself those questions, why does this exist? And then you get to that answer, you can then go, well, why does this exist in my life? What do I get from this? And when you do that cost benefit analysis, if it's costing more than it's benefiting, you should probably consider cutting it, or that person, or those people, or that commitment. Yeah, or that job. I'm not telling you like Beyonce, like go quit your job. But no, I'm just telling you, maybe you start looking for something else. Don't let anything drain you. But anyways, where else do I want to go with this? So I've been doing this history experiment, this study, not experiment, history study. And a lot of it is about better understanding myself and understanding why I act the way that I act, why I do the things that I do, what safeguards do I need in my life, where do I need freedom, what does my life actually look like, what is my purpose, why do I exist, and what am I going to do with my existence. So it took me down a road to listening to old podcasts, and for being honest, I went back and listened to uh the Clearing the Air episode of the Joe Budden podcast after they had their break, and then Rory and Wall came back and kind of just got their shit off. Why? Because I recently went through a podcast breakup, and a lot of the reasons of the breakup, the way it worked out was fairly similar to what went there. Just a misunderstanding of business, misaligned values, misaligned value on what each person brought to the table, and a different understanding of how the business goes. And before that happened, I felt that that was going to be a thing, and maybe because I designed my platform similar to Joe Budden, because it's one of the best independent platforms that we have, right? So I say, oh, this works, and I want to build my platform independently. I want to know my listeners. I want to connect with my listeners, and then eventually, when it comes time to make money, I want to leverage that, but I want to leverage it in a way that's beneficial to me and my listeners, not beneficial to somebody else's pain. I want to have leverage. I look here. I'm a leverage guy. You know what I mean? I play DB, and leverage is important, but like today, I'm a lineman. It's all about leverage. The man with the leverage wins. So through that journey of listening to that show, it led me down listening to old podcasts. And it's been a very interesting experience, right? Because imagine like listening to social commentary on something and you having a thought about it when it happened, and your mind's evolved, but you haven't revisited that with a new evolved mind to see how you feel about it. And the crazy thing is, you still feel the way that you felt when it happened, despite the change in your brain, because you haven't confronted this before. And as important as it is to know and understand history and all of that, sometimes I think we go too far back in our history studies. I think we care entirely too much about, oh, this happened before my lifetime. Well, what about studying the history in your life? Because you're still living. And think about the growth that you can have by just going back and just experiencing some stuff that you experienced before, but you experienced it with a new brain. So now you see that differently. You may actually process it for what it is and not what it was. I've even gone back and listened to old albums, and with my new perspective, you go, oh, wow. Or with the new information that I have, with the benefit of having hindsight. Like, They Don't Care About Us is one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. Why is it one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs? Because when I was a kid, my mom joined one of those CD clubs and got me the Michael Jackson History album. And this too was my favorite disc. And Scream was the first song on there. Then Don't Care About Us was the second. And the All I Want to Say Is That They Don't Really Care About Us. I really rocked with that. And although I was like 6, 7 years old listening to that, it's when I started my journey understanding race relations in America. And granted, I learned it from a in books, it was a sanitized Western version, but in my real life, I was seeing what was going on, and I was having those conversations and studying those scholars at a very early age. Then you hear the song and you understand what he's talking about because you live in a rural South and you see that people who look different from you and don't care about you. Not all, but just we're just talking about the culture, the sentiment. But then you go and listen to that song today, knowing what we know about Michael Jackson, the battles that he was fighting, the song hits totally differently. It's like, oh, he was telling us what was going on. Allegations and litigation, this, beat me, hate me, you can never trash me, will me through, you'll never kill me, shoot me, sue me, everybody, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, he's talking about what's going on. The fights that he's fighting, both publicly and privately. Wow, that gave me new perspective. So I'm not telling you to go back and be a nerd like me and listen to old podcasts, listen to old. Well, you should listen to old albums. You should listen to old albums. But be in tune with the history that you experienced and study it so that you can see it differently through a new lens. Because, so often we think life is true and false. And going back to the clearing the air podcast, shoot, oh, sorry. Going back to that podcast, so much that I took away from that podcast and their discussions was Maul kept talking about right and wrong. I got bit on my foot by some ants or some mosquitoes, so I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. But you go, well, right to who? How often is there really a right or wrong answer? And then you start thinking about this true false culture we live in. Life isn't a true or false test. It's a bunch of essay questions. Are there true false? Yes. Are there multiple choice? Yes. Are there short answers? Yes. But it's a lot more essays than you think. It's a lot of context that you need. It's a lot of here's what I viewed from my perspective, and here's how I responded. And then you go, well, I viewed it this way from my perspective. So this is why I responded this way. And then if you go back and you revisit it, that short-term history with that hindsight that you have, that I hear is 2020, like my eyes when I have these frames on, and you get seeing things differently. You go, oh, from my perspective, I was right. From his perspective, from her perspective, she was right. But from my perspective, I was wrong. But from that person's perspective, I was holy shit. We can look at the same thing and see something different. Now think about it. I'm gonna hold up my phone. Y'all see my phone. We both see a phone. But what do we see on the phone? You see a back of a case and a sticker. I see notifications that I have written. I see a black screen now. So I went from seeing notifications to seeing a black screen. So I'm looking at the same thing. And just in time, what I looked at, what I see changes. What I'm looking at didn't change, but what I see changes. Now imagine we're looking at the same thing, the same object, and we're seeing something different. And then we're arguing about what we see. Not what it is, because what it is a phone. But what we see on this phone is different. Now imagine this being a true false question. You get no context. They don't tell you what perspective you're looking at. It goes, hey, this phone has a sticker. Well, from my vantage point, there isn't a sticker on this phone. Or the phone will say, hey, question could be AC's daughter, the picture of AC's daughter is on this phone, but you looking at it from the viewer's point of view. You don't know that. You say false, but you can't see it. Only thing that you can say true or false to a phone is there a phone. That's what we can agree on. This is a phone. So when somebody wants to tell you they're right, right for right from what perspective, right how, right to who? Is it about being right or is it about gaining understanding and meeting? Because right and wrong becomes adversarial, becomes combative, leaves little room for nuance. And that's kind of what we're doing with the media now. You know, we're getting away from nuance. Yes, I'm going to over talk about the media. Why? Because a lot of us consume a lot of media. But I was listening, shit, I'm 520 again. And it got me thinking about why I hate, freestanding media. Places where opinions go unchecked. I love athlete driven media. But I also understand with athlete driven media, these people are trying to protect themselves. They're trying to protect their standing. And they were talking about Austin Rivers and his back and forth with Draymond, and then he was on some platform with Ray Felton and a guy who I've never seen before. And the guy was pretty much telling him that he got overpaid based on production and incomparable players. And the 520 guys got to talking, and Jeff Teague was like, you can't say that he was overpaid because somebody paid him. That's true. And then he also said, well, you don't know what other people are offering him. Again, that's true. And I'm not going to say that the guy was Austin Rivers was overpaid. Why? Because somebody paid him. They put that much value on him. So he wasn't overpaid there. But in my organization, I may say, hey, you don't bring enough for me to pay this much. But more importantly, they get to having the conversation, and Wills and B. are pretty much just on the side of, you played in the league, so we can't speak on that, and we didn't do that. So now in black culture, we say we don't count pockets. Yeah, we do. We pocket watch. We do talk about people's money. And we probably should talk about people's money more, because when people are talking about your money and scrutinizing your money, you tend to be more responsible with your money because you know you're being held accountable for what you do with your money. I'm receiving a phone call. I'm not going to answer it. And that's okay. And then that had me thinking, well, if you can't have a comment about an NBA player because you didn't play at that level, then who can talk about it? Just NBA players who want to protect their legacy, to protect their friends, or protect their league, protect their product? How do we break ground if you have to be the person who's done it before you can be the person who analyzes or talks about it? Well, then who can be an analyst? And it makes me think about the Kevin Hart piece, right? Because all of this is control. The constant use of saying pause, or, oh, you can't say that because you'll get canceled. Canceled by who? We're acting like the internet is a monolith. We're acting like the world is a monolith. Hey, there's nasty people in this world who are into nasty things, and guess what? There's a market for it. But to the Kevin Hart roast, right? Some guy, I don't know his name, never really heard of him. He made a joke about George Floyd, and people just thought it was so out of pocket. And you're entitled to feel that. But guess what? Just because you don't like the joke, just because you think the joke is out of pocket, doesn't mean that you don't have, doesn't mean that he can't make the joke. Let him make the joke and let the market respond. If people don't want to rock with him because they don't like that brand of comedy, why do you care? There's a bunch of comedians. You can go listen to them and don't listen to him. But he was at the Kevin Hart roast, and you wanted to watch the Kevin Hart roast, so therefore you had to hear what he had to say. Oh, that joke was too dark. Too dark for who? I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought it was a pretty good joke. Was it rude? Was it inappropriate? Yes. Was it insensitive? Yes. Would I make it? No. Would I make it publicly? No. And I probably wouldn't make it. But that doesn't mean I will say, oh, that joke's not funny because it went too far. No, I listened to it and I laughed. Yeah, I laughed. That was inappropriate too. You see what happens when we live in a true false culture? Two things can be true. A joke can be funny and a joke can be inappropriate. A girl can be dressed inappropriately and she can not be asked to be raped or raped. No, I'm going to say raped. If that doesn't work for YouTube, oh well. You're not going to tell me I can't use real words. That word is offensive. In what context? It's not offensive or not offensive. A white person saying it, that's offensive at all times. Is it? Or what if they're reading and the N word is used and they want to ensure that the message gets across? Is that truly offensive? It may be offensive to you based on your levels, but it may not be offensive to me. And if said event happens, you just respond to it. But I don't know. But when we're in a world where you can get paid for anything, and you really have to ask why this show exists. This show exists to entertain me, give me money, or does it exist to sell me something? You get people oversharing. And I'm all for sharing on social media. Hell, I'm all for it. I get on a podcast and I share things from my real life. I talk about things. But are you sharing it for money? Just for money? Like, if your life, do you see yourself so little in yourself? Do you value yourself so low that you think that everything that you do has to have a price to it, that you have to monetize it? Like, I'm just gonna post some stuff I don't believe in because I can get money about it. I'm gonna get on here and talk about this. Like, the people who do they like walk with me as I no. I don't want to watch you get dressed. I don't want to watch you lift weights. I don't. I that does not. What do I gain from that? Are you promoting a product? If you're promoting a product, okay, cool. Now promote the product. But if you just want me, if you were just telling me about what you do, you getting dressed because you hope that enough people want to watch you get dressed so you can make money, that's the mental illness. At some point, you got to turn the internet off. Like, I've talked to people, and they're like, hey, man, you should do these walk with me videos. This. Like, no. More times than not, when I go outside, I'm not trying to produce content. I'm not a content creator, I'm a broadcaster. I lock in for a specific amount of time to talk about things, and then I go back to real life because the internet is not my real life. I'm not going to overshare things with the world just to monetize. It takes me to reality TV. For one, it's not real, it's fake, it's WWE, and you look at it like real life. But think about the things that happens on those shows. You got fights, you have arguments, you have custody things, you have embarrassing stuff, you have people getting cheated on, having affairs, getting exposed, having weddings, breakups, to makeups, this and that. Why do you want somebody to see that? I oftentimes hear women that say, if I catch my man cheating, I can go back to him as long as he doesn't embarrass me. But then you're sitting here watching people get embarrassed week in and week out, and you embody a lot of the traits that those people exhibit, but you don't want to be in the situations that they're in. Birds of a feather flock together. art imitates life, then life imitates art. And again, going back to watching old stuff, bro, I ended up watching like some old love and hip hop stuff, right? Some stuff that started with entertainment, then it goes, bro, let me just really dive into this. Because this is wildly entertaining and this is a terrible way to live. And I look at the women who I had crushes on when I was younger and I listen to them talk and I go, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? And then you think about the guys on the show that the women like, but then you see how those guys treat their women, and then you see how it reflects in their life. And then me, I think about women that I've dealt with, and I think about the stuff that I was attracted to at the time, and I go, oh wow, I was looking for the wrong things. Or I was allowing some of the wrong things because I like these other things. And you go, well, you can actually find that in a place where it's aligned with you. It's crazy, right? It's just a thought. Because, the more and more I look at this hip hop industry, not the hip hop industry, the entertainment industry, from the athletes to the musicians to the people behind the scenes to the up and comers, it's a nasty industry. For so long, our entertainment industry were either Nepo babies, so again, already tied to that industry, or people who came from unstable backgrounds and this dramatically changed their life, but they're just as controlled as they were when they were from their humble, unstable backgrounds as they are today. Oh, you have to go on the show and make an ass of yourself because you can't make money elsewhere because your skill set's limited. Or you have to keep putting music or sign these slave deals because you can't maintain this lifestyle with your skill set elsewhere. Oh, you have to put up with this man who doesn't care about you, mistreats you, but he gives you the monetary things that you want and that you can never get for yourself. Oh, because you want this job, and oh, you don't have any other marketable skills that make you money. And you don't have a mentality or attitude that would allow you to be a housewife elsewhere. Something to think about. Sharing women, beefing about shit. Hey, dog, I'm gonna be honest with you. I grew up in Cartersville. Me and my friends, we ain't too much beef about women. Now, there was one dude I used to kick it with. He used to try to get on everything that I used to try to get on. Or after the fact. Don't get me wrong, I made a back try to back on time or two, small pond. But shit, when you got a small pond, you in the ocean, you still see a fish. You in the ocean. You got your boat over here. You see somebody bring to pull up their boat next to you every time. It's like, oh my god. But that same stuff happens in that industry. And say, oh, the industry's small. Everybody, well, the world's not small. Why you want to live in a fish tank when you can live in the ocean? Well, you might be the big fish in the fish tank. You might get the most attention, or you might be the big fish in the pond. Yeah, you might be the big fish at the aquarium. But your range is limited. Now, if you want to be that fish in that pond that's contaminated, full of sewage, some pretty fish in there, but they got Flint water in them, so they ain't healthy on the inside. Yeah, yeah. If you want to be in that Flint pond, big fish in the Flint pond, getting all those little fishies, have it. But I'd rather be in the ocean, carve out my own path, not have to embarrass myself for $1, for a lifestyle. Take the things that are sacred to me and things that I would deal with internally and deal with it in front of the entire world to see. That's insane. And then you ask yourself, why does this exist? Like, why does love and hip hop exist? Oh, it's a means to get artists in front of a large group of people. to keep people who are in the media, who are in the entertainment industry, employed, so that maybe if they come up with a hit, we can make more money off of them, and they just don't disappear because they love this lifestyle, you know. Or you could say, why does this exist? Oh, it's a poison pill for the black community because a lot of us strive to have these once in a million careers. And so if we put more of that in that lifestyle in people's faces, they'll say, oh, in order to have these things, here's what comes with it. So I'll accept the bad to get this good. And it's like, hey, you know, there are a lot of people who go to clubs and pop bottles and have nice cribs and have nice cars and have nice shoes, and they don't do all of that wild stuff. They actually work hard. They have a moral code. They have dignity. They have pride, and they work hard, and they get a skill, a trade that's transferable into multiple places, multiple companies. It might be one industry, right? But the industry is so large that if you piss off one person, you can still relocate. Because see, the entertainment industry is international industry. It's global. It's big in only a few places. And guess what? Those people who New York, LA, Miami, Atlanta, yeah, the same people operate the same. So you know, it's all incestual. And I'm not telling people don't be an entertainer because we need great entertainers. We need creative entertainers. Life shouldn't just be go to work, come home. But you shouldn't be so damn entertained that you ain't learning. You shouldn't be so damn entertained that you're learning how to be an entertainer when you don't want to be an entertainer. And then you sign up for that nasty, perverted, sick, disgusting lifestyle. And you don't even want the spoils of it. That's crazy. You end up spoiled, rotten. Not like a kid, like milk. It's disgusting. And you know, in that, I think about what China's done. They've cracked down on their influencers. Bro, if you ain't qualified, if you can't speak on stuff, if you don't have certifications, if you don't have education, you can't just get on here and just spread this information. Why? Because we don't want to misinform our public. But see, here in America, we go, oh, we can make money off of this. It doesn't matter if we misinform our public because our country is built on so much misinformation. We don't tell our true history. Hey, well, I can get it back. I was listening to Joe Budden and them, right? They were talking about Cheyenne Brown. I don't call it doctor no more. You know what I mean? They're talking about Cheyenne Brown. And they were giving their thoughts on her maybe possibly faulty PhD because she can't produce a dissertation, she can't produce a transcript, she can't produce proof of graduation. The college that she went to, the institution that she went to is no longer open. Hey, you didn't know that institution wouldn't be open when you went there. And then you come up with stories saying that they got rid of the transcripts. Well, that's not true. Not if you have it. Oh, your cover's been blown. But see, she's been allowed because she can get a back to get online and push her product, sell her books, sell her services, overpriced services, not certified services. You know what I mean? Maybe not even as fully educated as she presented herself. And Ish was like, I'm not going to shit on a black woman while on the day her book comes out, blah, 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 while she's trying to get a bag. Is the bag the end goal? Because let me tell you, if I write a book, I want to get a bag off of the book, but I'm not writing a book for the bag. I'm writing a book to spread information to people. And hopefully the information is palatable and informative and presented in a way that people want to pay for it. But you lead with the substance, not the bag. And if this lady is cosplaying as a doctor, a PhD, and she's not, she should be called out. It should be discussed because she's trying to sell us something. I don't want snake oil. I don't. Now, I could use some olive oil. Shit, I can use some Crisco. Fry some bird, fry some fish. But I don't want no snake oil. And the problem isn't that, hey, she's not certified this. She's has a master's but not a PhD. And what's the big deal? And she didn't need to be a doctor to be what? But you said you were a doctor. Credibility has to count. Because if you have credibility, if you don't have credibility, you don't have nothing. If you lie about who you are and what it took for you to get here, why would I not think you're lying about the things you're saying and what I should do? Why should I want to go to you for coaching? Why should we have you platformed as an important person in this world that black people should listen to about getting better with their mental health? When shit, if you lie about who you are, how good is yours? I'm not saying you can't be a valuable asset. I'm not saying the information that you're spewing is bullshit. But if you don't present yourself as who you truly are, why? What are you trying to hide? What's the point? What's the bigger picture? Why does this exist? Now, if you went to make money, go do things that make money and stand on, hey, I'm here to make money, ready to run a bag and say it explicitly. But don't fool the people. I'm telling y'all, be leery of these leaders with these diamonds. Be leery of these leaders who talk about a bag. We don't trust you niggas. We can't trust you niggas. Because if you're displaying your riches and your wealth, and you're rich and your wealth is part of it, that lets me know what you lead with. That lets me know what's important to you. And like I said, a good therapist gets rid of their clients because they give them the tools. But you can't get that nice diamond doctor chain if you ain't got clients. If you ain't selling product. See, you're supposed to be giving a service, but you're selling product. Nah. Nah. And we have to be careful who we listen to. I don't care if it's a platform. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in freedom of assembly. I believe in, hey, you have a mouth, you can use it. But just because you have a mouth and I have ears, don't mean those two have to intersect. Just because you have a mouth, I have ears and a brain, don't mean that I have to let things that come out of your mouth into my ears affect what goes on in my brain. I can just let it go in the left ear and out the right ear. I don't even want that rock to hit my brain housing group. But that's me. And as I get to a close, when I talk about questioning our leaders, and we can give anybody a platform, but it doesn't mean that we have to listen to them. I think about a video that was sent to me almost 2 weeks ago. And it was a pastor who I know, pastor I've heard preach many times at a church that I attend. Shit, a church I'm a member of. And, this is a weird topic for me because I'm talking about something I know. Somebody I may not know may hear it. But if I came across this video on the internet, I'll talk about it. But it was sent to my phone. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk about it. The pastor talked about being delivered from crack for 38 years. Congratulations, I'm proud of you. I hate that it happened to you. But then in that, he starts talking about the life that he lived back then, drugs, women, drinking, party, all that stuff. And sound like you missed a little bit. That's okay. That's fine. I ain't smoke cigarettes. I still been cigarettes. I don't smoke no more. Shit. It ain't because I don't want to, just because I don't need to. For many reasons. And then he lost me because he goes, the preacher's up here gay, married to a man, and they say they're going to heaven. Well, if they're going to heaven, I want my crack. I want my 10 women. And I want my liquor. And I'm paraphrasing. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate the transparency. Because now I know, for me personally, I don't see you as a religious leader that I need to follow. I'm not saying you're not a religious leader. I'm not saying you haven't been called by God. I'm just saying at this point in my life today, you weren't called to get me closer to God. Because at the time in my life, you did. And even though you're no longer at this church, you're the reason that I'm at this church. You're the reason I came to this church. You're the reason that I like this church. But you got to ask yourself, why does this exist? Or why does this exist in my life? And just because something existed in your life at one point and it made sense, doesn't mean that it makes sense today. And there's nothing wrong with questioning things. Question yourself, question relationships. Don't over question yourself and become like anxious and unable to make a decision. But you should question your commitments. You should question the institutions that you're in bed with. You should question every single thing. And you shouldn't just do it because you've been doing it. Because what we learned is, oh, that's how we've always done it. Well, there's better ways to do things. Well, that's how my mama grew up. Well, there's better ways to live now. Well, my daddy grew up. Well, you know what? Your dad didn't grow up the best. You're not your dad. So, hey, based on my understanding of the word and life, I think there's a way to act in the pulpit. Not just a way to act, but a message you should get across. And I also think there are human messages that people truly feel. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think everybody in the pulpit was called by God. Some people called themselves. Some of them selling snake oil too. They ain't selling tickets to heaven, they sell snake oil. And I'm not thinking it's your pastor. Because again, a guy cannot be called, but he can get you to. You can think a guy wouldn't call you. You don't think the guy's the guy or the pastor for you, the lady's the pastor for you, the minister for you, that's the thing for you. But then when you take the information out of it, separate it from the person, just look at the information. Shit. It might be it for you because see, my dad's a pastor. I know preachers well. I've worked with a pastor. One of my old therapists is a pastor. I've had intimate relationships with pastors, and not like in the Catholic Church, just as far as talking about real life, seeing them outside of the public light to see who they truly are. And them niggas flawed. But they're supposed to be because they're humans. I expect them to be flawed. I don't expect them to be perfect. I don't expect them to walk everything that they preach. Not every single day. They're human. I give them that grace. I'm not a moralist. But when the message isn't properly messaged, I'm like, why does this even exist? Why am I here? If you ask yourself that question and you can't answer, leave. Like I'm doing right now. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend. That's AC's Afterthoughts.